Hello everyone, Gianluca Massi speaking on the behalf of the Virtual Telescope project. And it's a pleasure for me to be here this evening, just sharing once again the wonders of the sky live in real time. Tonight we are just ready to bring to you the beauty of a subtle astronomical event that is a penumbral lunar eclipse. While I'm speaking, the moon is just rising above our horizon here in Italy. I am in Rome, but the telescope is in the wonderful countryside of Maremma in southern Tuscany. And this is going to happen because we have a new telescope installed there, providing beautiful images. So I'm just going to start sharing with you what we have in line, my friends. Here we are. This is a screenshot. These are live images coming from our telescope there, and as you can see, there are a few trees there, just making for the moment an eclipse of the eclipsed moon. So to summarize, we are here, and via the Virtual Telescope project, we are going to see the final final phases of this penumbral lunar eclipse brought to you by the Virtual Telescope project facility in Italy. The telescope is in the countryside of the Maremma in southern Tuscany here in Italy. I am sitting in Rome, about 120 kilometers far away, and while I'm speaking, you see the moon is just rising behind some trees. Of course, the image is clearly rotated because this is an astronomical telescope having a fixed set. It is just installed in a permanent telescope. By the way, I want to show you the telescope as well now that we are here up and running. These are live images showing to you the telescope, and as you can see here, you have also a beautiful landscape. As I said, this is one of the robotic units part of the Virtual Telescope project, friends. And while we are speaking, as you can see, the moon is just rising, and you can guess this because the telescope here is just pointing to the horizon, and of course this is making apparent that the moon is rising. This is not strange, because the full moon, the mandatory condition needed to have an eclipse of any kind, is the full moon is rising when the sun is setting, because as seen from the earth, the sun and the moon are visible on opposite directions. Now I want to switch back to our rising moon, and so I switch back to this. You can see the brightness of the moon just coming from behind the trees here. I really need to shorten the exposure time. Sorry. Here we are. Just making sure at least we can still keep perhaps the longer exposure time while we wait for the moon to rise, just to enjoy the silhouette of the moon, which is quickly rising, my friends. Happy that we are able to bring to you this, even if, as I say, this is a penumbral eclipse, so do not expect anything comparable to a total one. We still have to see if we will be able to spot any evidence of the penumbra, because the sky here is not perfect. As you can see, there are clouds. Keep in mind that the image is rotated, as I said, because it is a telescope, an astronomical telescope, which has a fixed rotational angle selected for scientific reasons, and we are now using it. Of course, this strange rotation is apparent because we have a piece of the panorama inside, otherwise inside the capture, otherwise just the full moon wouldn't was possible just with the mere moon to spot this strange rotation. Anyway, we are waiting for our satellite to rise, and these images are coming live to you via the Virtual Telescope Project facility in Italy. I want to thank our technological partners, by the way. They are Software Bisque, C-Web and Telescope Live, and I want to thank all of you for joining, and also the international media just featuring our event, telling you about this opportunity, you know. Here we are. You can see that the moon is quickly rising here. Let me remove this crosshair at this point to hopefully have you enjoy the experience at its best. You can see the lunar glare filtering through the branches of the, as I said, of the trees on the foreground, and look at the wonderful colors we have there from the clouds. Let me see. Let me prepare also to image acquisition, because we really want some good memories of this. Of course. Here we are. Now switching back to live images, waiting for the moon to rise. Here we are. How beautiful this very moment is. There are also stars, of course, visible. Just waiting. Let's use a darker, so at least we can have perhaps a better view. And the moon is now a couple of minutes from rising. Image after image, you can see the lunar glare just moving behind the trees. And at some point we will have the full disk available, and hopefully we can have a look to hopefully detect, as I said, the evidence of the penumbra. Still waiting. Let's see. Perhaps it is time for us to start reducing the exposure time, half a second, and we will have to reduce even more, I think, pretty soon. Meantime, you can also enjoy. Here we are. You can see the lunar disk now leaving the trees. Look here. How beautiful all this is, my friends. Look how beautiful all this is with the moon slowly rising here. Hope you like this. Let me see. Just to see if we can grab okay. Just to make sure that we see the first correctly exposed disk. Here we are, my friends. Just making sure that we can have correct disk. Now back to these live feed images. Too much exposure, I see. This is the full moon rising, the flower full moon, by the way. And I'm looking forward to see if there is any evidence of the penumbra, even if I'm not sure, because as I said, we are just we are having clouds, making much harder to spot this already subtle. Perhaps if I just play a bit with the... I would expect that the bottom of the lunar disk to see a bit darker, but still very difficult to judge because, as I say, the sky is far from being perfect, unfortunately. Just trying to play a bit. Let's see if we can underline this pale darkening of the bottom part of the lunar disk, which is visible, I must say, from these images. Let me see if I have to reduce further the integration time while our moon is rising. But of course, if you look here, you can quite easily recognize how the lunar disk on the bottom part is clearly darker. I was not sure we could be able to spot this because, as I say, the weather is the sky is seeing clouds up there, and they are making harder and harder for us to spot this, of course. Let me see if you can just capture a couple of shots to have them later for reference. Here we are. Let's take more and more. Again, back to live image acquisition. And let's see if with the moon rising, hopefully suffering less the interference of the clouds, we can perhaps have a better experience or not. Just trying. Image after image, but as I said, to me it is visible how the bottom of the lunar disk here is of course darker than the top. I hope that this makes sense to you as well. This is a marginally darker, as expected for a penumbral eclipse, than the top. What about the penumbral eclipse? You know, if you were on the moon right now, where you see the penumbra, imagine to be in that portion of the moon where you see the penumbra from the Earth. From there, if you were there on the moon, you could see the sun partially eclipsed by the Earth disk. So, in short, those regions of the moon suffering, let me say this, the Earth penumbra are having a solar partial eclipse. And that is why we see this. This is happening live, as I said. We are sharing images in real time while the moon is rising in Manciano, in the very beautiful countryside of Maremma, southern Tuscany. And as I said, it is clearly darker here than on the top. And this is an effect, of course, of the penumbra, as I said. This is auto contrast, of course. How beautiful every time the moon is. And as I said, we are really having clear evidence just playing a bit with the histogram. Having fun with this. Penumbral lunar eclipse is quite hard to spot because the effect of the Earth penumbra on the brightness of the moon is truly pale. It's subtle, as I used to say, but if you look carefully, you can really see that this region of the moon is darker than the top. And here it is where the penumbra is. The bottom of the lunar disk as seen in this image. As I said, there are clouds low on the eastern horizon when the moon is right now To give you a detail, the moon is just 6 degrees above the southeastern horizon at the time I'm speaking. And of course, we are very slowly leaving the penumbra. How beautiful the lunar disk is every time. I'm never tired to have a look. Never. The Virtual Telescope project is bringing to you this live. Let me share with you also the sky condition. As you can see, this is an all sky camera showing what is up in the sky right now above the observatory. You can see here the moon and plenty of cirrus here, making basically harder or impossible to spot the effects of the penumbra. But still, as I said, you can see that the bottom part here, the lunar disk, is marginally fainter than the top, and the penumbra is just impacting this region of the lunar disk. Meantime, here it is our telescope. You can see in the shadow of the evening and the moon on the left, just kissing the border of the frame here. Back to the moon, rising the flower full moon 2023, rising with the penumbra. Which I want to try to quite natural, this stretching. But as I said, you can see here how the lunar disk is clearly darker than here. And this is exactly the expected effect of the lunar penumbra. These images are coming live to you via the Virtual Telescope project facility in Italy, and we are using our large field of view astrograph in Manciano, in the countryside, in the Maremma, wonderful landscape, wonderful land in southern Tuscany. Happy that the sky at least is free enough to bring to you this beauty. As I say, compare how darker this part is versus the top. The top is untouched by the Earth penumbra, while the penumbra is here and it is leaving. We already crossed the maximum on the eclipse that happened when the moon was still below the Italian horizon. We started, minutes after the moon rised, but at the time the maximum of an already pale eclipse was already gone. Images are coming live, as I say to you, Let me see if I can show you a different flavor of this. Let me try. Just an experiment done live with you now. Okay. Just want to check if we can do something better with this other. Okay. Just reducing here the gain of the camera. Sorry. Adjusting things live, as I said. Now these are again live images, my friends. Let me see if we can do something. Okay, let's increase even the dynamics here. Live images coming to you. Just want to see if this is making any effect. Look here, there is a clear cable, a power electricity cable just crossing the lunar disk. But you can see how again these are clouds, likely, sorry, because otherwise the cable should be much more sharp. Live images again coming to you via the Virtual Telescope project. Just trying to do the best. Too much exposure, perhaps, but reducing the gain. And as I said, more and more, these are live images, the flower full moon while it rises. And of course the effects of the penumbra are now almost impossible to note because the clouds just crossing the field of view, and you can see the pale evidence of those clouds if you look carefully. Like something moving in front of the camera, they are the clouds. up and running again, bringing to you the beauty of the cosmos. But it is hard now to look at to any hint of the lunar penumbra, as I said, because there are clouds moving in front of the lunar disk, and you can recognize them as a pattern sliding from the bottom left to the upper right. And of course, those subtle variations are making life harder to spot any evidence of the penumbra. But at least, as I said, we are seeing the moon live at its best possible. Very happy that the sky is with us. I apologize if earlier I left the telescope on the foreground while I was telling about the eclipse. Then I recognized that I had to switch the windows. I'm sorry for that, but sometimes controlling everything, especially when we have such a borderline weather, it's not easy. But again, look here how this region looks a bit fainter than the top, even if there are clouds there, but that could be the reason for this, maybe. Yeah, at least we had earlier perhaps a better experience without any cloud moving in front of our satellite. Yes, what I was mentioning as a darkening was the cloud entering the lunar disk, which is clear evident now if you look. Let me try to limit ourselves to this, just to hopefully have much more this way, just cropping the images around the moon, just limiting our camera to work on the small portion of the chip where the moon is. We are getting tens of images per second, 24 exactly right now. How beautiful this vision is, even if, as I said, we are having less than perfect weather. Still, perhaps, judging this image, I can say that I am still convinced that the bottom here is a bit darker than the top. And as I said, the moon just touched just entered the Earth penumbra, never touching the shadow, and the effect of the penumbra on the brightness of the moon is very subtle. But if you are lucky with a very transparent sky, something we are missing this evening, you could see the effect by naked eye. I did that several times in the past, just to give you an idea. Sorry. Just to give you an idea, I want to share with you these images where a bit of processing made easier to spot the effects, the impact of the Earth penumbra on the moon. By naked eye, you never see something so evident, but again, I repeat, you really need a transparent sky to have this experience. Back to live images. Here we are. And at some point we will be closing this live feed as we are approaching the end in about 10 minutes or so. Despite the clouds, I hope you had fun. I invite you to consider supporting the Virtual Telescope project. Just visit our website www.virtualtelescope.eu, and from there you find the donate section, and from there you can support us. Keep in mind that the Virtual Telescope project is doing more and more in the next days. Next week, May 11, we will share the moon with a very beautiful sharp crescent very close to the Messier 35 star cluster, something very beautiful to see. And later this month, May 23, we will show you the brightest object of the night sky shining in the same spot of the sky, the moon and Venus. You can find details, timetables and more on the virtualtelescope.eu website, and please consider supporting us by donations, because you see, we never ask for money to join our live feeds, and we do a lot of them, even bringing to you very unique things. And but you know, there are bills to be paid, and these hard times are also affecting our capabilities to run everything. But we are here, and we will do our best to survive. And I want to thank all of you who support us over the time, from time to time, particularly that handful of donors supporting the Virtual Telescope project. You can be one of them, which is easy. Just visit www.virtualtelescope.eu and donate whatever you want to support our project. So friends, I hope that despite the clouds you had fun looking at with us, and I'm looking forward to see you again on the next live feed scheduled for next week, May 21, where we will share a beautiful sharp crescent, lunar crescent, meeting up there the open star cluster Messier 35. More details on the Virtual Telescope website www.virtualtelescope.eu. That's all from Gianluca Masi, Italy. Keep looking up and take care.